Hi, welcome. This is Scott Turnbull along with Alex Bryant. We are your executive director and director of programs for First Chesapeake. We're happy to talk to you again in this third official town hall of mine. I think it's second for Alex. So we're happy to talk to you again. We're going to cover a little bit of program updates. We're going to talk about some volunteering opportunities, and then we're going to talk mostly today about events for next year. We One of my very first town hall, I talked about doing some events a little differently next year, being actively recruiting and things like that. And this is part of that effort. So we're going to talk about that for next year, although we really haven't begun in earnest the season this year. So it must be a little weird to talk about venues for next year, but that's what really we're going to focus on. So I'll save that for the moment to come. But we're really happy to be here. We're very excited for the next couple of weeks for FTC to kick off, and we know that FRC is going to be a great season as well. So we're back to in-person events. I'll answer this question up front that we got through FormStack, but we'll take questions at the back end of the presentation as well. So if you have questions, go ahead and drop them down in the chat. The moderators will queue them up for us to answer as best we can. But I know that the major question on everybody's mind that I keep getting is the format of competitions this year similar to pre-COVID or like the last 2 years? And I think they mean, is it remote or are we back to pre-COVID competitions? And we are back to pre-COVID competitions, as I said. So I don't know exactly what the FRC season is going to be. They're going to reveal that at events and videos in January. So we'll know what the actual game is. But it is back to in-person events with scoring and crowds and the whole bit. Again, as always, we encourage everybody to be safe, not just for COVID, but for flu and for everything else that might be happening out there. We live in a world that's uncertain. So behave as if you affect the people around you. That's a good mantra to adopt. So just keep that in mind as we go forward in the season, and we're going to have a great season, I think. So thank you very much. I want to introduce Alex. I know many of you have met Alex, but Alex is going to give a few programmatic updates for the season. Hey, Alex.
Yeah. Hey, Scott. Thank you. So the big programmatic update is we just found out today that we're able to play another qualifier for FTC, which is in Maryland. It's in Union Bridge, and it's going to allow us to play some teams that would have to travel really, really far. So really excited to have that new qualifier. We've reached out to those teams, and we'll hopefully have some extra space and can open that up for third play here in a bit too. Otherwise, we're still working through the announcements for third play. Everyone should have first and second play, and if not, shoot me an email or I'll be following up with you very quickly. But yeah, we're really excited to get everyone placed and get the season going. We're only 3 weeks away from the first play in December, so excited.
Yeah, me too. That's going to be a great season, so we're looking forward to it. And then with events, we're going to put in a plug for volunteerism again. Volunteers are open in every role that we possibly have out there, especially if you're an FRC team approaching the FTC season. We would love to see you connect with your program mates over on the FTC side and help execute and make that a really great season as well. So if you're a mentor, if you know a mentor, and really for mentors, if you're looking to recruit another mentor, I think there's nothing hooks somebody as strongly as coming out to an event. So if you're thinking about bringing a mentor in, all they see when you're talking about going on your builds and driving your team around, all they see is the time commitment. They don't see the benefit, but you bring them out to the event and they see the excitement and they see what is actually happening, what the amazing work these teams are doing. And they go, that light bulb goes off and they think, oh, I get it. I know what we're doing now. And that's your hook. So use your tools. That's a great tool, and encourage them to come out and volunteer, set up cones. They can judge, they can do whatever. There's no bad positions here. So we hope that they'll come and volunteer. You can find more information on the First Chesapeake website, firstchesapeake.org/volunteer. And you can also go into your First Inspired dashboard and do some volunteering, pass YPP training, and all those other things that are very, very important as well. And I'm going to throw this in early on when it comes to mentors. And I don't know who the audience is here. Hopefully it's adults and hopefully it's potential site event hosts. But I'll just say, as we launch into the season, something to keep in mind is this is a great opportunity for mentors to be working with kids, because just like with the students, I should say young people, not kids, with the young people in our program, just as their thing is not the robots. Like, it's really all the things they learn while putting the robots together. together. It's the STEM skills plus the entrepreneurism plus the fundraising plus the project management. The same thing is true for all of us mentors, adults in this program. It's not helping the kids build a robot. It's helping the kids integrate their negative emotions when they have a conflict with a peer, how to reach a resolution, a good outcome when they don't always get exactly what they want, how to negotiate, be safe in a space, how to create a safe space for other kids. And we model that behavior. So I just want to put a plug in to use our tools. There are there are incident reporting tools on the First Inspires website that will send out an emailer to make sure all the mentors know about. There are youth protection screening that you can put your other mentors through so they understand and can keep it top of mind how to do this professionally and well. So we have a full environment. We have a network of concerned adults, and we have professionals who help us do this well. And I would encourage everybody to take full advantage of all those resources. Again, to just make a great season. We've all been through a rough 3 years. We're coming up on the third year, which as an adult, that's a long time. But if you're 15, that's a really long time. So, so let's help them. Let's help us all reboot our lives and get back to in-person, compassionate interactions and good interactions that's inclusive of everybody. All right. So, thank you for indulging me on that. Let's talk about sites for next year. So, absolutely critical. I'm going to get into the criteria for sites here in a second. We're looking for both FRC site event host and FTC site host next year. So if you think that you have a site on that's willing to work with you to host an event, now our FTC season runs December through February, and our FRC season runs March and April. And if you think you can meet some of these criteria, we really encourage, especially new site hosts. If you thought, geez, I have a great event site here, we can host a great event. I just haven't done it before. We're busily building some resources to lower the bar to doing that, some checklists, some closeout checklists, and all those kinds of things that you'll see. We'll have some meetings throughout the year as well for potential new site hosts to incentivize you to come up next year and give it a try. And we have a number of really top rate experienced site hosts who I know would be eager to work with you as well. And that's about increasing the resilience for the kids to create a great program going forward. So the criteria: can I host a site? Do you need access to some site that's willing to host an FRC or FTC event? We need things like judges' rooms that would be on the site, wired internet, load in and load out. If you've been to an event before, you know the trailers come in and we have to bring the robots in and out. Accessibility to within the building so they can bring the robots across. People who might be mobility impaired or have some other impairment be able to get around the building well. Have hotels nearby, especially for FRC. That's very important. We're trying to make FTC events not overnight, but sometimes things happen and sometimes teams want to travel. But so have some good options for hotels nearby, floor covering available, strong volunteer base. So it's a small community with a lot of passion or a big community with a lot of people. Those are great ways to get it. And the really key part for us is we need to keep the cost cap. So if we can work with the site to get the host site to comp the site itself, we provide some fees around food and a stipend for the event manager and things like that help move the event along a little bit. But we're hoping that the site, the venue would work with us in terms of pricing. So that's all across the board, all of the sites. For FRC, those are the biggest footprint. As you know, there's a 2 days events, but we need access Friday night all the way through Sunday for teardown. So Friday night is a setup all the way through Sunday. That needs to be about 80 foot by 100 foot playing field with 25-foot ceiling. So we need that ceiling space. Spectator seating for at least 1,000. An accessible pit area for about 6,000 square feet. So usually cafeteria and maybe meeting space as well usually does that. But the bigger the space, the better, so we can create better pit spaces. And one of the critical things for us, we'll get into the distribution and capacity for events here, but to make this really work and have a great event, for FRC sites, we're looking for a site that can host 36 teams. We're really looking for that larger experience that creates fewer events, so there's less travel for teams involved. We can get more teams in the space. We can focus more volunteers in that space. We can, have less broadcast. It works a lot better for the teams, for the host, and for First Chesapeake as the district as a whole to maximize the size of these sites. Adequate parking for at least 500 or above. I mentioned about the access Friday and so forth. And a practice field space would be ideal. It's not technically required, but we really, really want to have an additional space to set up one practice field for FRC sites. So for an FTC site, a little bit lighter in terms of the requirement, a 55 by 110-foot playing field. What we're trying to do there is get a 48-team event. So really have two events running side by side next to each other. But that 48-team event creates the kind of excitement we're looking for, creates economy of scale. We're not double tapping on our volunteer base. We're just able to do a lot more when we get that large site in there. So we're looking for accessible pit area of about 5,000 square feet, accessible parking for 300 people, set up the night before and the day of the event. Those can be Saturday or Sunday events, and sometimes we have separate events on Saturday and Sunday. But we can negotiate those bits as time goes by. So I'm going to talk a little bit about distribution, how we're going to run it. You probably can't see a whole lot on this, but this is FRC and how we're going to distribute events. I originally, when I mentioned back in my very first town hall, I was going to do an analysis of zip codes and drive time to events and things like that. But when I started looking at the data, I've done data work before. Anyone in the call who's done data work before, you're probably very much like me. You have all these aspirations of very, very parsed out, very specific data analytics, but you look at the aggregate data at the top level and it tells you the story you need to know. So I didn't want to make this too complex. So this is the distribution of teams by zip code out through the district. The color is supposed to be the gradient of the concentrations. No surprise here, the concentration of teams are really in Maryland, Nova, down in Central Virginia, and then over in a little bit down in South Central Virginia as well, with a smattering of teams spread out through the rest of the district. So given that, I think we have a couple of clear zones of where the concentration of the population are. And I apologize for the hand-drawn nature of this, but I think that this is really where we're talking about the grouping of events. Now, someone might choose to go to a far event. Someone might be on the cusp of one sort of unofficial. These are unofficial regions, but in an unofficial region, they might go to be on the cusp and go to one or the other. Now we know there's some of that, but generally speaking, when you look at the center point analysis of all this, these are the basic groupings that we end up with. And so to capacity wise, if we count on like a 20% growth, which hopefully we'll get more, but 20% would be pretty aggressive. We have 105 teams right now coming in. And if we get to 20% growth, be 125, almost 130, which is big as we've ever been as a district. And so if that, we would need one more event than we have this year. So capacity is pretty good, but distribution wasn't that great for FRC events this year. So that additional event would be added in Maryland. But I think in the team's distribution, the operating theory of what we need right now is we need two in that Maryland area, that corridor between Baltimore and sort of northern DC, maybe out of east of DC, two FRC events out in the sort of quasi Nova region that might reach out a little bit out to Vienna or that extended area, two in the sort of the Charlottesville, Richmond, Norfolk corridor, and then one, of course, out in southwestern Virginia. Data shows that there's a good interest in third play. You know, we're fine adding an event for third play out. Maybe if you have to travel for that, and out of district play as well, although it's not incentivized as well in FRC this season. Who knows what it'll be next season? But that's our operating theory of how many events we're shooting for next year. We would like to identify 8 to 9 event hosts and maybe have some in reserve if we end up with a spectacular year next year, but we're shooting for 7 next year plus a championship event, obviously. So that's our that's where we're headed with that. There's really not much complexity there. I think that basically works. So yeah, so if you have a site that you think can host, we would love to talk to you. And there's a email address at the end of this. It'll be events@firstchesapeake.org. So just go ahead and make sure we put in a little CRM. We're also going back through all previous season and getting host sites that had done events before, and we'll be actively reaching out to them here in the next few weeks to see if there's a team that's interested in kind of being shepherding a hosting site at the location. So FTC, let's talk about FTC capacity. I know I like data, but that's fine. If you don't, you'll have to snore a little bit. Poor Alex is on the arch side, and he's probably snoring a little bit through this. But I'm just trying to spell out our assumptions. So this year, the current column takes the breakdowns of those colored regions, for lack of a better term. It's sort of that Central Virginia corridor, as I mentioned, North and East Maryland, West Maryland, We divide this a little bit differently in FTC than FRC, and then of course North Virginia and DC, and then Southwest Virginia. So our current capacity is what you see in the column there. So given all of the plays that we have this season, and there we're over capacity in the Virginia region and under capacity in the Maryland region, which is why we've been adding more events. So I want to rebalance that capacity so we have more. And what it looks like, the operating theory right now is it looks like we're okay third played wise and out as district play, that we can fill those under capacity sections in Southern Virginia or Central Virginia, but we really need to add capacity in Northern Virginia, and that's what this does. So if we assume 48 slot events with maybe 128 slot event out in Western Maryland, which would be McHenry, and I don't know if they'll be there next year, but that area, and 128 event team event out in Southwestern Virginia. If we assume all the rest are 48 slot events, there's a bit of slack when you divide based on the current capacity. You end up with some slack. So that actually brings us up to this year. We're able to, at full capacity, we'd be able to do 240 teams. We're shooting at about 230, 228 teams right now. But 240 would be our full capacity right now. That in this new picture with these new set of events, that would give us a 268 capacity, which is right a good 20% growth. Again, I think it gets us in the ballpark of where we want to be, and it adds significant capacity to the Maryland area. And when I say capacity, that includes the capacity we just added today. So this is a parity with capacity now, and basically basing our estimate on that. So gives us 536 plays, and that has a fits a capacity of 268 teams. So what you're about to see, that's how that assumption operates. But because these are much larger events, the two things that put us significantly behind this year was that we didn't even get to look for this year's sites until May of last year. So it came in a very short window when we could accept when we did site recruiting. And also the sites were just all over the map in terms of their size. There's quite a few very small venues this year, and we want to just get to all those big venues next year. So this is the zip code distribution for FTC teams as well. It's a little bit more concentrated in a few other areas. We have a good number more Appalachian teams, a good number more Western Maryland teams. But it's really similar to what you saw in FRC as well. So, but given that, so these are the zones, I think, and what we're talking about in terms of our distribution for events this year. So if we had an event out in Western Maryland, if we had one event out in Southwestern Virginia, those can be 28, but they can be as big as 30, 36 too. There's really nothing holding us back, and I'm confident we can fill those with plays. But the rest will be really concentrated in this sort of crescent along Eastern Maryland, Northern Virginia, and sort of Eastern Virginia, with an extra event sort of being in that middle spot. So 3 up in that northern that northern and Eastern Maryland area. Again, 48 slot events. So so 3 times 48, that's how many teams can play up there. We'd have 4 in the Northern Virginia region. That gives us 1 between the two, so you can get teams going back and forth for their second play if need be. And then 3 in that central and Eastern Virginia area. So that's the distribution we would have based on that. We might end up next year with a slightly smaller bench, but as much as we can, we're really going to be actively calling teams to see if they'll be willing to work with us to be a host, especially if they're new. We want to identify at least 20% new hosts. If we can do 10 to 20% new host teams every year, then we're building up resiliency in the district. We're building up a cadre of teams that can host, and people have their rotation in to get their benefits when they do their award interviews and how much they're contributing to the community. Those spread the wealth throughout the district, and it gives us the advantage of building resilience if we have to shift from one location to another. So that's really why that's one of our plans to move that forward. Now that's going to be I'm going to get to questions here in a second, but just to say that that's going to be coupled with a few things that we're looking at next year for improvements as well. I don't know exactly what we're going to adopt, but we're very interested in adopting whether it's Jersey Wave or Pickle Juice or one of the other leagues. League management applications. We're looking at bringing something like that in to help to help manage like site sign up, and there won't be as much confusion about which event I'm in. If we can build an invoicing system through that to make the invoicing a lot easier, that's going to be one of our true focuses next year. The other focus is to really be hands off in terms of more hands off than we have been in terms of our process. So if you're a site host, we want to make a great event for you. There's an opportunity for you not just to host your peer teams and serve your district, but it's even a fundraising opportunity. You can sell concessions, you can sell T-shirts and do things like that. You can bring your sponsors out for VIP seating and VIP treatment. There's all kinds of things that are available to those teams that do this, and I think it's a great opportunity. So we're going to be looking at sort of lowering the bar to hosting an event, playbooks, checklists, all that kind of stuff. Lowering the bar to registering and getting into an event to make that much easier next year. We'll know more by about the beginning of FRC about which way the wind's going to blow on that, but we're trying a few apps right now. So that's a call to the community. If you're involved in Little League or football, or you have access to an app that supports sort of team registration and event picking and all that kind of stuff, we would love to get your feedback on that, because we've been reviewing applications for that. So we'd love to just to make it a much more interactive, much more easy to register, much more clear to find information process next year, and bigger, more exciting events. So that's where we're at. Yeah, I'm not sure we have any questions, because this is mostly a status, and the very compelling topic of event hosting is out there. But we're willing to take questions on anything related to the season, or anything on site selection or anything like that. We'd be happy to answer. I'll just give it a few minutes. Alex, anything you would add while we're looking for questions?
No, this is wonderful, and I know we've already gotten a couple of people who have just written us and said they're excited to host them. So we'll be following up in the future. And
yeah,
like Scott was saying, getting this Rolodex of venues so that we can plot everything appropriately. It's just going to be wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. All right, I don't think we have any questions this year at this time. So actually, with that, that's all I got. I hope you'll volunteer. I hope you'll consider supporting a fellow team that's gotten up. And again, I can't mention this enough, but if there's a mentor who's been working with you, just bring them out to volunteer sometime. I think it's going to be a great experience. Let us know if we're there, and we're going to be, Alex or I or Shelly or somebody will be at most of these events. I think I've been to 4 of the preseason events now. I plan to come out every weekend. Sometimes there's 2 events on a weekend, so I may not be able to get to all of them, but I'll certainly try. And if we're there and we can put a plug in, we'll be happy to do that. When will we get info about FTC comp info, such as schedule? Oh, I think you mean competition schedule. Alex, are you able to answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is actually getting published to our new website, which should be launching this week. We can make sure to publish it on the old website in the interim, but generally we're going to operate around the same time structures. So 7 a.m. start, and we're looking at 6:30 is when everyone goes. There will be judging between 8 and 10, and we'll have that first drivers meeting at 10:10. So kind of the same schedule. We're not reinventing the wheel here, but we'll get that information out to teams very, very soon, and we'll also have it posted on our new website.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I really appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you so much. Short town hall today, but we'll look forward to just a few weeks. We're going to have our first FTC event. Again, I hope we see you out there. Please come up and say hello, especially if we haven't had a chance to say hello before. Before that, I just want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you're able to celebrate whatever way you choose to, and whatever brings you joy. I hope you're able to find that over Thanksgiving. So thank you to everybody, and we'll see you when the events start.
Thank you, everyone.